Hi, this is Stephen Baranowski, the guitar consultant, here with a lesson today on bending, something a little bit more advanced. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to introduce one bend to you. Okay, this is the G string bend. Okay, and we're going to actually contextualize the G string bend as being part of a minor pentatonic scale. Now, obviously, bending can be in all kinds of contexts. It doesn't have to be within any kind of blues or rock context. But I find by teaching within this, it kind of helps us use that bend early on. We know what we're going to do with it. We know why we need it. The scale we're going to use is the standard, minor pentatonic scale that everybody kind of learns day one, and we're going to go do it in the key of A, which means we're going to be on the index is going to be stationed on the 5th fret. Now, if you don't know this scale or you can't play it very well, maybe this is this video is something to do a little bit later after you've gotten some more basics down. But should you be familiar with this, well, welcome to the party, and we are going to bend on the G string. Now, this bend will be what's called a whole step bend. It will be the equivalent of 2 frets, which is extremely standard for this kind of bend. We are going to set it up like so. We are going to have our ring finger do the bend, and we are going to assist with the middle and even the index, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. First, we're going to talk about the ring finger itself. We want to be right behind the fret here on 7th fret, okay? So not halfway through, definitely not in the, in the back half, right behind it. What we want to do is when we do a bend, we want to, as I say, ride the metal. We want to skate along that fret like a monorail. This is going to lead to a smoother bend and a bigger sound, and just again a sense of smoothness and professionalism across the board. The second thing we're going to do is another one of our rules is generally nobody goes in alone. We are going to support the ring finger bend with our middle finger. We're never going to do a one finger bend with a few minor exceptions. So our middle finger will be on the 6th fret, and it will be reproducing its bend from its fret. Some people do kind of bunch up their fingers like this. This is where I have to make a decision how I teach. I teach the fingers to be one finger per fret. And our index finger is even going to help at its level, but we're actually going to change that as we go. As you bend, you are going to want to, again, ride the metal, and you are also going to look at the target. Okay, so our target is going to be the sound of a whole step. In terms of how it looks, the physicality of it, you are actually going to bend until you touch the A string. You're going to go plowing right through the D string and just beginning to deflect the A string a little tiny bit at the top of its range. A lot of people are initially quite startled by how far the string has to bend. And some people are a little shocked. They're afraid the string might break. While this is not impossible, this is literally what electric guitar strings are designed for. And they can take it. They'll be fine. By the way, this is not a lesson for acoustic guitar. You're not going to be able to do this on acoustic guitar. And we're kind of assuming 9 gauge strings, 10 gauge strings, 11 if you're ready to do a little bit of fighting, but definitely with a plain 3rd string. Now, a few other things. As you are going to do the bend, you are going to imagine that you are pushing the string with your skeleton, okay? This is kind of gross. Skeletons are gross and scary, but you want to be pushing the string from behind. If you're too deep in your finger, like kind of in this, you're kind of, pushing or pulling from this area, you'll be pulling the string with your flesh, as gross as that sounds, another gross word, rather than pushing. And if you pull something, if it slips, well, you can get that, which is one of the worst sounds that a human being can possibly hear. Now, as you go to begin your bend, what you're going to do is, as you initially strike and you start to move, you're going to have your fingers have a lot of curve to them as well. Make sure the hand is close to the guitar. A lot of times when people have a hard beginning, their hand is sort of far away. So their hands are already like this, and then they're trying to push out. Bring this line of pads almost to the side of the instrument right here. Bring your fingers down and then separate a little bit. So if you're looking from the top, you can see that the fingers are curved nearly in half. Okay, they're curved like so. And if they are curved like so, they'll have a lot of room to push. If they start like this, well, no room to push. So a lot of curvature. Okay. When you strike your note, you're going to imagine the path of the ring finger. This is kind of like a little bit of inside baseball trick. You're going to imagine it not traveling along the path of the fret, not the track of the fret. If you do, you're likely to peel away from the fret as you go. And the further you get away from the fret, the harder this is going to get. You're going to imagine the track moving towards the center line of your chest, towards the sternum. Now, obviously, it won't be doing that. It will be running along the track of the fret. But imagine your ring finger moving towards your chest, and it will run along the length of the fret. Imagine it running along the length of the fret, and it will actually start, in many cases, running away from the fret. Why this works, I don't know, but it seems to work. Now, as you start the bend, you're initially not going to worry too much about whether it's in tune or not. We're going to dial that in just a second. Strike the note, extend the fingers, just about touch and deflect the A string. Then stop the note with your right hand. Okay, that way we can avoid all kinds of crazy sounds as we release the note. So we're going to really try to make sure that this is also a quiet bend, making no sounds we don't want to hear. Now, the question is, if you had some good luck with that, then how do we know that that's a whole step bend? Well, we know a whole step is 2 frets, okay? 1 fret is a half step, 2 frets is a whole step. So we know it's supposed to go from here to here. But how can we prove that? Well, fortunately, the guitar has the solution inside of itself for us. So this note right here, your target note, is also the same note as the note that would be played by your index finger on the B string. Equivalent notes. So when you execute this bend, you can use this note, the pointer finger note, as a reference tone. And I'm going to call it that, a reference tone. So when we do a bend a second time, we are going to take our index finger, place it on the B string on the 5th fret, call it our reference tone, and we are going to place our middle finger and our ring finger down and execute the bend. Wait, Steve, do we need the index finger to help us execute the bend? The answer to that is no. Actually, these 2 fingers will do just fine. So the tricky part is when you extend these 2 fingers, not carrying the index finger along with it. A lot of times all 3 fingers will come along. Now this is called an oblique bend, meaning one note will remain stationary and the other 2 will travel. And it's a little bit of a trick at first. So what you're going to do is you're going to set yourself up, index 5th fret on the B string, ring 7th fret on the G string, middle finger 6th fret on the G string supporting. And you're going to strike the note, slowly start extending your fingers. Now as you do this, start hitting the B string as well. Go back and forth between them. And listen to that G string slide into the B string's note. And they should join each other, creating a unison. Go slowly, because it's really easy to overshoot on the G string. And then you'll be way out here in the stratosphere looking for that note and not being able to find it because you passed it a while back. Do this several times. Well, frankly, a bunch of times. Do this over and over. You can also hit them both at the same time, listening to this dissonant sound close up into a unison sound. Now this actually has a name. It's called a unison bend, and it's pretty useful on its own. It's a pretty cool thing that's heard in a lot of rock songs. You know, we've all heard that in like classic rock stuff. Now, as you get better at this, you can even start kind of like, trying to go in blind. In other words, pre-bend without even striking, and then listen to your... Now, I nailed that. I was worried about that, but I got it. So what I did here is I pre-bent the note. I struck it without listening to it while it came up, and then went to see if it matched its target. Now, once you can do that, you can be pretty sure that you're doing pretty well. Oh man, this is probably pretty hard. You might be saying, how am I going to like hit a note, dead on based on just sound and feel? And the answer is, it's probably going to come faster than you think. I find that accuracy is kind of what human beings are about. We're pretty accurate as a group, and we get accurate quickly, especially once we know what we're doing. So the next thing I want to talk about, though, is what happens after we hit our target. So say I'm going to do a G-string bend. I hit my target, and I do a good job. Now what? The first thing we want to do is you want to create a lock. You want to lock the note, okay? What the lock is, it's a mental state you create within yourself where you say, this note is now frozen. Like if you imagine the pitch rising as a hill, this would be a plateau at the top, okay? This is really, really super important in my opinion, because I find that unless people have like a lock mentality, what they do is when they get to the top, their body just goes, well, I guess we're done, right? And it slowly loses interest in the bend, or rather quickly loses interest, I should say. And you get a lot of this. Like a little sad dive, you know what I mean? And we don't want that. We want, bring it up, hold it, lock, kill it. Now, once you've locked it, you hold the bend for as long as you are intending to hold it, which could be a fraction of a second or maybe even a couple of seconds. When you are done with the bend, our first option, we have to think about how this is going to end. I mean, we've thrown this into the air. It's coming down. How is it going to come down? First one is the simplest answer and probably the most common, which is to stop the bend at the top of its range. You do this with the right hand. Just take the karate chop edge, gently place it over the string. You can kind of stop it with the left hand, but the right hand is the great turner offer. And you are going to black out the note. It should turn off like a light switch. It'll be a little bit sudden and almost disconcerting at first. But you'll learn how to tailor this so it sounds natural. It's not one of the harder things you're going to have to do. Then what you do is once it's turned off, you just bring it down in silence. The other thing we can do is we can bend it up, hold it, like again, create a plateau, and then bring it back down. As you bring it down, bring a lot of attention to bringing it down. Don't think about like being in a gym and bringing some barbells down. You don't just release them and let them drop. You bring them down just the way you brought them up, carefully. A lot of people will lose the note on the way down because their body sort of abandons the bend on the way down. If that happens to you, watch for a hidden mental attitude in your mind and body that says, I'm done with this process a little bit too early. Okay, it's extremely common. Okay, one more thing, the index finger. So we established we don't necessarily really need the index finger to help with the bend. We do have a reference tone, but what if we don't need to use the reference tone? What is the index finger's job? Okay, so the index finger's job is going to be a very, very important one. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that pointer finger and you are going to lay it across the strings. Okay. Now this is not a bar. It does not have to be this rigid, straight across, ultra parallel with the fret thing that goes all the way to the low string. It's just going to be a sort of a loose diagonal crossing over a couple of strings. What this is going to do is make sure that all those notes that you crashed into, the A string and the D string and who knows what else, which are going to be agitated by this bending action. P.S. There's no way of doing this without agitating other strings. So if you've ever done bends and wound up with a whole bunch of extra notes kind of ringing out you don't like, this is simply the answer, is you take the index finger and you put it across here. Okay. You can also be blocking with your right hand, but that's a different topic. So bend it up, and then when you bring it back, the index finger is making sure that nothing is ringing out. Also, if you a little sort of side bonus on this is you can kind of get this kind of like ripping strike where you kind of drag across a few dead strings on the way to the bend. I like that effect way too much, but it's actually not I would say a mandatory technique. Okay, so here are a few ideas about bending. We're going to talk more about bending. Remember, as you do bending, you will get sore. Okay, if you do a lot of bending, if you get sore, give yourself permission to stop. We don't want to get our fingers all pulped up on the tips, so we can't do this the next day. Strength counts. Okay, you have enough strength almost certainly to do this, but we want to develop extra headroom in the system. We want to be a lot stronger than we actually need to do it, and that will help us get that style that we're looking for. One last word about style. So I'm a big believer in developing style kind of as soon as the technique exists at all. So one thing you want to do is if you say, hey, I can, hit a whole step, I can hit it fairly accurately, this blocking thing is working, it all seems to be going on. Now what? What you want to make sure you're doing is you want to make sure that you are going with maximum smoothness. What we want to avoid is any stair stepping. Stair stepping is if you graphed the pitch rise as you went, it would go up, and that you can wind up with a lot of that. Especially if you are putting downward pressure into the bend. Quick note, one of the biggest things you have to watch for is downward pressure, meaning that you're pushing into the neck, pushing into the wood. Imagine bending as you are sliding a sofa across the gymnasium floor. You'd put your hands behind the sofa and you'd push. You wouldn't put your hands on top of the sofa and also push into the floor while you're pushing. It would just make the job much harder. Make sure when you bend, you are bending completely vertically, if you will, towards your face, going across the floor. Any pressure into the actual face of the guitar is going to turn into a big problem. So as you bend, what I would recommend doing is first simply concentrate on the idea of smooth. Okay? And then if you one thing that can help is exhale. It doesn't really matter if you're hitting your pitch that exactly if you're concentrating on smooth. Get that smooth right, and then you can reestablish pitch if you've lost it at all. When you get that smoothness, that's going to translate into what seems like years of practice that you can develop literally within weeks of beginning. Again, we have a lot more to say about bending. It is one of the deepest areas of guitar. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and let me know what you guys are interested in. Okay. Anyway, Stephen Baranowski, the guitar consultant. If you're looking for private lessons, hit me up, and I do Zoom all along the country as well as in-person lessons if you're in the Austin area. Happy bending. Have a great day. Thanks.